Hello, beautiful patrons. Welcome to a bonus episode of Bibliorex. I am Bugs.
And I'm Bam Bam. And I've gone dragon insane. There was a better joke there somewhere.
We regret to inform you, we watched Eragon for our Bad Books, Bad Movies series.
Regret for the movie specifically is...
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so bad. My kids, Amy and Rory, were watching it with me initially. And then Amy was like, I'm going downstairs to draw. And Rory was like, we were halfway through, was like, how long is this? And I paused. I was like, there's 40 more minutes. Oh, okay. But he was like invested enough because he's 7.
Yeah.
So this is like okay action for a 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
It was so bad. Oh my God. So I figured we would kind of brush over what we liked, didn't like about the book, and then spend the rest of the time
just ragging on the movie.
Just bashing it. And I found some really funny Rotten Tomatoes reviews and a couple things like that.
Is that the one you sent in the group?
Yes.
Okay.
No, that was like Pure Movies, or some other like Christian website that labels questionable content.
Oh. No wonder I was having a hard time navigating it, because it did not make any sense to me.
It makes sense if you're a homeschool mom terrified that Arya and Eragon are making googly eyes at each other.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about that.
Did you notice she's not even an elf in the movie?
Yeah, they didn't have any other races.
They couldn't afford elf ears or dwarves.
Or the discount orcs that they bought at Kmart.
No, I know. The Urgles weren't even, like, non-human.
They were just dudes.
They were just dudes covered in mud. And bad teeth.
Yeah, as far as the book goes, I'm interested to hear your opinion, because you read it like when you were younger, right?
I read it, yeah. I think I was a teenager. I didn't realize it came out in 2002. It was a lot earlier than I realized.
Yeah, no wonder I didn't read it as a kid, because I was 8.
Oh my God. I'm so old. I know I read it when it was closer to being not a bestseller, but like in hardback at the library.
Yeah.
So I remember I liked it okay. And I started reading the second book, and then I lost interest by like book 3, maybe. I think there's 4 books total. I remember even then being bored, which I was a voracious reader. So reading Eragon took like 2 days, maybe. Because I could sit and just...
You were a big smarty pants.
I could devour 400 pages in a couple days. Because I read very fast, and that was my only source of entertainment.
Yeah.
I remember being a teen and being extremely impressed because Christopher Paolini published this when he was still 16 or 17 years old. And he went to American school, which is the correspondence high school I went to. He just did it a few years before me because he's older than me by a few years.
Yeah.
So in my head, he was like, he beat me because I wanted to write a novel and be like youngest novelist who's published. And then I found out that his parents owned a publishing company. And that explains why he just ripped off Star Wars.
Yeah, I got a lot of those vibes.
And stuck it in Lord of the Rings land. Put it in Middle Earth, and it was Star Wars.
That is crazy, because in my head, like, no context of that. I'd never heard that comparison made. And I kept thinking, this is a lot like Star Wars.
Yes. And it's understandable if you realize he was a homeschooled kid, and probably his only 2 acceptable media content was Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and he wasn't allowed to read stuff that secular kids were allowed to enjoy. He was probably not allowed to watch or read Harry Potter. I don't know if his family was religious or not. I did get some overtones that he grew up with a Christian perspective, not necessarily a specific flavor.
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of similarities between the Orson Scott Card problem of his perfect boy can never do anything wrong. I noticed that in the book a lot.
Yeah. I think that might just be a little bit endemic to the genre, though. Like, I don't know that I could totally lay the blame at the feet of Chris.
No, especially as a teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, even at that age, it's hard to add gray to stories.
Yeah, it's hard to see things with a lot of nuance when you're 16. Yeah, honestly, even with all that help, I mean, it's still an impressively written book for a 16-year-old.
Oh yeah, like I was still interested in how, narratively it was written pretty well. I hated how he turned all of the sentences backwards to make them sound old-fashioned. Like the language
did the kind of Yoda speak?
Yes. His excessive use of the word meat. In the first chapter, when he's like going to the butcher for meat and then carrying packages of meat and then getting meat for Saphira and then crushing up, boiling more meat. And it was just like, you have so many random words for everything else you're describing. You can't even say roast.
Or venison
or beef.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess you probably don't really think about that kind of thing when you're a kid. You just don't think of all the different varieties of meat. It's just broadly meat.
Probably never cooked it in real life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, book on its own, I would say 3 out of 5 stars. Maybe a B, because I would say there's plagiarism here. You need to go back and rework some of these broader issues with your story as a whole.
Yeah, I wouldn't say those are unfair, but I honestly couldn't help reading this and not feeling like a little, like, because I only read this for the first time.
Oh, yeah, as an adult now.
Yeah, like a week ago.
Right.
And had my second reading today. But I couldn't help but notice, like, some of the little bit of wonder and magic that I would have felt as a kid the first time reading it.
His world building is pretty good.
That being said, I do have some issues.
Really? That's why it's here on this specific podcast.
It's wild how this showed up on a Bad Books podcast. I don't 100% love the relationship between Eragon and Seraphina.
Saphira? Or Seraphina? Oh, it was Saphira.
It might be Saphira. Hold on.
Because I know it's one letter different than sapphire.
Okay. I thought the root word there was seraphim or something like that, like an angel or something.
No, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Sapphire the gem because she's blue like the gem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the movie, they call her Saphira the whole time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is Saphira.
But yes,
sorry, everybody. I've read this book twice and I'm still stupid.
No. But yes, the relationship between them is weird.
Yeah. For instance, the scene where they have their first flight, where not the one where I guess he's being abducted by Saphira.
Book or movie?
The book.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the first time they ride and it's consensual in both parties.
Yes, where she doesn't just grab him and run away.
Yeah, a lot of the language used to describe the flight was really weird. If you go back and read that selection and read some of the sex scenes from Game of Thrones between Cersei and Jaime Lannister, very similar language, and I could not think of that every time they flew after that.
That's interesting. And it's like, my issue was that she's our only real female character in the book or the movie who has any agency or does anything. But she's still very much owned by him.
Yeah, like that is a big issue because just the very nature of what she is within the context of the story is lesser than Eragon.
Right, because she can't speak to anyone else.
Right. Then there's the fact that the rider can die and the dragon will just die with them.
Right, but a rider can survive the death of their dragon.
Yeah. It doesn't, it feels a little weird, especially for like a sentient creature or something like that. Like if it's just some kind of magical beast, like I kind of get it, but here it feels a little weighted wrong.
Did you bother getting into the second book?
No.
Eldest?
I think I might now, because I don't hate the book. I don't hate the story. I feel like there's a lot that can be done to improve it, though.
It's funny because I started listening to Eldest, and within like the first few chapters of the book, a woman shows interest in Eragon because suddenly he has all this political power, and Saphira barges in and growls at her and scares her away because she's
jealous.
Not jealous, just protective.
She's pretty jealous.
And then she finally admits maybe a little jealous. And it's like, and her thing is, well, if you're attached to someone, I'll be attached to them too because we share the same soul or something.
It doesn't feel like that. Like she's jealous of a horse in the first book.
Yeah.
Because he's riding the horse and not her. And then at one point, she threatens to strap him to her back and never let him go.
Yep.
And he's like, I love you too.
Yep.
And that's some serious, like, cute couple shit.
Yes.
And she says, more reason to bind you all the tighter. And it's, just having weird leather sex with your dragon.
I think that it just shows his very isolated, sheltered upbringing because I didn't get those vibes the first time I read it or the second time when I read it recently. I felt like it was more of when you're in homeschool communities, you might have best friends, but a lot of times dating is really forbidden. And if a girl is boy crazy, she is shunned from the group. So you're not allowed to have crushes on people, but you're allowed to be friends and really good friends. But if you have bad thoughts about them, you have to go repent and keep those very secret or you'll get in huge trouble. And I got the feeling that it was him expressing that kind of friendship and relationship with someone where you really like them. You want to be around them all the time, but you're not allowed to have any more bigger emotions than that, no matter how old you are.
Yeah. I don't know how much clearer you can make it when you've got your two characters sitting outside of the city of Tyr watching sunsets together every evening.
But what he's going for chaste companionship because he doesn't know how that looks to other people.
Yeah.
I didn't understand innuendos till I was in my 20s, after I had been married for years.
Yeah.
Because I was never in a culture that used innuendos. I didn't understand what they meant in television. So I would say things that people took the wrong way and made it into a joke. And it took a lot of that before I realized, oh, these words have double meanings. Right. Because that kind of language was not allowed to be used in those social settings.
That's so weird because I've been getting double entendre since I was like born.
Yes.
So I can't see any other way in the story except for him fucking this dragon.
But where I grew up very sheltered and isolated, that would have never occurred to me.
Right.
And even as an adult, understanding his perspective, it never occurred to him either.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it's more of a very innocent, childlike perspective, which is problematic in the broader world because everyone else is going to take it that way.
Like, as a kid, that's what this was targeted toward, was
Yes.
younger people. They wouldn't have ever seen it like that. Just
Right.
and especially back then, probably because I don't think the mutilated way that I look at things now was quite as popular back then.
True. Everyone's become much more ironic and dead inside over the last 20 years of meme culture. So this movie, oh my god, they sped through the book so fast and skipped the entire mid half of the book.
Like, everything in the book happens in, like, over the course of, like, months and months,
Months
right?
and months and months.
And
like,
the story happens in, like, 3 days.
Yes, I know. Like, Saphira took months of eating to get large in stature. Poof! She's full grown, full size. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Wait,
like,
what?
Like, they definitely, like, brushed past it in the book a little bit, but it was fucking egregious in the movie.
Yes.
They're just like, we literally don't want to spend, like, any time working on this. We don't even want to go through with, like, a fade in or anything of just letting the dragon, like, grow up a little bit.
So since you haven't read Eldest, did you realize that Murtagh and...
He's gonna get a dragon?
Well, he is Eragon's brother.
Oh. Huh.
So the Star Wars comparisons, when you've read the second and maybe third book, Murtagh, his dad, was the Galbatorix's right-hand man, bad guy.
Right, Morzan.
Just like Darth Vader. Galbatorix is the Emperor. Morzan is Darth Vader. Eragon's mother was Princess Leia, who had Murtagh with Moran. Moran abused Murtagh, and so when she got pregnant a second time, she returned home to Caraval Valley, or whatever it's called, gave her child to her brother, and then returned to Moran so he wouldn't know she had a second child.
Right.
I'm pretty sure this is all revealed in, like, the second book.
Yeah.
So...
spoilers, by the way.
This is so old. There's no spoilers here. I was just wanting to explain to you why I was so pissed at the Star Wars stuff and how it's not at all expressed in the movie. And in the book, you don't even get it until you get the big reveal.
Right.
Eragon, I am your father. Which I know wasn't in Star Wars. Don't at me.
It's really funny, too, because when me and Lily were watching the movie, we kept saying that Murtagh was Kylo Ren.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
They accidentally more Star Wars stuff in there.
Yes. Well, okay, so then they're, like, equally powerful when it comes to fighting. Because Murtagh travels with Brahm and Eragon in the book for a while, right?
Like, Murtagh doesn't show up until as Brahm is dying. Yeah.
But he and
they do
Eragon
their little
duel,
mock battle. And
they're evenly matched physically. But Eragon can do magic and Murtagh cannot, which is just like Leia, or did I say Leia was the... Oh my god.
You said Leia was the mom.
Well, Padme? I was wrong. Padme was Leia and Luke's mother.
Whatever the mom's name was. I know the book mentioned it, but
no, in Star Wars, Padme is the twins' mother. I can't remember the name of the mother in Eragon. Anyway, so like Luke and Leia, Luke has the Force powers, Leia does not. Eragon has magic powers, Murtagh does not. And it was really funny because at the beginning of the movie, I'm just a poor farm boy, poor me, why me? And then
his uncle dies.
And Jay was like, oh, do they burn him up or something? I was like, how did you know? It's Star Wars. And they even have the scene of him staring at the sunset at the beginning of the movie, too. And then I was like, oh, no, he's not burned. He has straw. scattered on top. He had death by straw. And then Brahm was like, funeral fit for a king, and just burns him, just burns the whole place down. I was like, okay, Brahm wasn't quite that vindictive.
Yeah, he wasn't that callous about it.
He wasn't that callous in the book. He had a little bit of empathy.
Mm-hmm. Unlike Obi-Wan turning into... Does he just, like, disappear, or does he turn into a ghost? Obi-Wan and...
Well, he gets killed by Darth Vader.
Right, but his body just, like...
Yeah, he becomes, like, a ghost or something.
Yeah, so instead of that, Brahm gets turned into a rock.
And gets that diamond encased around him. Which...
It infuriates me, like, anytime Serafina does something like that, because she's just like, well, I didn't mean to, and I also didn't know that was going to happen, and like, your powers are just bullshit and the story is just fine with it.
Yeah, they use her as a plot point whenever they need to.
Mm-hmm. Just like with the baby, when she gave the baby
a blessing.
Yeah.
I think that comes up in the second book, but I don't remember how, and I don't think it was, like, really relevant.
Yeah. Oh, and Eragon, the fucking ego on that guy. Like, he didn't really do anything for that child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just spoke some quote-unquote words of power as a blessing, which seemed to do nothing. And then... Saphira comes up and nuzzles the baby, and then the marking appears. So Saphira did it, and Eragon's just like, oh my god, I'm blessing people now. It's like, look what I did.
Because her thoughts are not really voiced to anyone except for him. And everyone looks at her as his dragon. And that is part of my just real irritation.
Yeah, she only exists as a subset of Eragon.
Like a really talented puppy or something. And that part I just found really, really annoying.
Yeah. At least, I feel like in the book, she had a little bit more weight to her character. Because in the movie, like, she talks, but I don't think that it really affects the plot, like, at all, that she can talk or has her own opinions on things.
No, in the book, at least, she is able to talk to Brahm psychically. Anyone else? I don't remember.
Doesn't she talk to Senenbaum?
Oh, yeah, the weird cat.
Yeah.
I was kind of sad we didn't have him in the movie, but there would have been no time.
Yeah, that would have just been, like, so weird. Like, apropos of nothing, that here's this cat boy.
Well, and Angela was a pretty big character in the book and was given, 2.5 minutes in the movie?
And was just, like, a weird... Like, you could have just not named that character, and it would have changed nothing in the movie. And it just would have been kind of a little nod instead of... this weird lady who keeps referring to herself in the third person out of nowhere in this nothing-ass fishing village.
Yeah, it was... Like, also, she was this little beam of interest in the book, and they wiped out every little thing that made the book interesting or, like, worthwhile to me.
Yeah. And then in the movie, like, Murtagh is just stalking them.
I know, he just shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah, he has, like,
saves them for no reason.
He's got, like, no reason to be following these people.
And they have no reason to trust him. And then they imprison him at the, what's the name of those people in the mountain?
Oh.
Varden?
Yeah, the Varder or something?
The Varden.
Maybe, yeah.
They imprison him because they know he's Moran's son, but then he gets out and shows how bravely he fights. And in the book, he doesn't want to go to the Varden because he knows that's what'll happen.
Yeah.
In the movie, he has no idea and he wants to go there. And then they're like, haha, sucks to be you, lock you up.
Get wrecked, idiot.
But also, I found it, and I think this is just a problem with books being turned into movies. Eragon's training is given no time at all. None.
Yeah,
which,
like
limited time.
mm-hmm. Like I
Huge
understand
book.
why you got to do that in movies, but it just seems so much less earned,
Mm-hmm.
and it just feels really cheap. Like, why bother it at all and just let him automatically just be good at fighting and save that 5 minutes you could have spent somewhere else?
Like, I did feel the book did show how hard it is to train, how painful it is. Like, I thought that the point of it, the first time he is riding on Saphira's back and the inside of his legs, the skin gets ripped raw.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, like, literally see his flesh
Yeah.
and he couldn't walk normally for days.
Mm-hmm.
That is something very thoughtful from the author's perspective of, oh, what are the mechanics? His body would hurt. He would be cold. They couldn't breathe oxygen this high up.
Like giving
His
like
skin would rub off.
real world consequence to
Right.
what's happening in the story. It makes it feel more real.
And all of that was completely ignored in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Like any realism.
Like you could just do like a little, like you don't even have to spend like any time on it.
You could just have him going, oh, my legs, when
like
he's
you could just have
off.
just like as a aesthetic thing, just have like his pants like just rubbed off like right there on his thighs or something.
Or show that he hurts when he's climbing off the dragon. Something. Yeah.
But yeah, John Malkovich was
oh my god, I forgot he was in. I had no idea John Malkovich was in it, and I was laughing so hard the whole time. I know I interfered with Rory watching it because I was dying. I was dying.
Like, I understand that Galbatorix is like set up as this super over the top villain, but John Malkovich just plays the shit out of it.
Oh,
he's like, I'm going to be the evilest evil man you've ever seen evil on the screen.
I will evil upon evil, evilly. There's a few pretty big name people, and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, Jeremy Irons.
Yes. Gosh, he was just getting a check. He was he was
just there.
bored. So bored.
Oh, one thing that I really liked about the audiobook, the narrator for Saphira's voice, he makes her sound like a monstrous Louis Armstrong.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that was so much better than just listening to like generic woman voice.
Right.
Because I think whoever voiced Saphira was also a big name actor and was just like Jeremy Irons, was just kind of there for a paycheck.
We were joking, like they couldn't afford elves or dwarves or fire.
They spent everything on that shitty looking dragon.
Everything on the dragon and on John Malkovich. Like it was $100 million budget and $98 million.
99 million of it went to John Malkovich and the CGI dragon.
Which honestly, she looked really good. Saphira was done. The CGI was really good.
I don't know. Like I'm less happy with it because I feel like they kind of cheated with the feathers. Because I'm pretty sure it was easier to animate her with feathers than it was to have like actual like scaled skin and stuff like that, and that amount of detail instead of just some fluff.
They made her more bird, less pterodactyl.
Which, not an invalid choice, but I feel like the only reason it was made was for the sake of, I guess, graphic wise.
Yeah.
So, which I mean, it was like 2000 something. So they were, so it was like super limited at the time.
Yeah.
But,
I know Rory kept saying it just looks so fake, and I'm like, I know, bud. To your eyes, this is really, really bad. And it was so funny because I was looking through the Rotten Tomatoes, and it had like movies that came out at the same time, and it had Beowulf, and I was like, oh my god, that was such a bad movie. The graphics were so bad.
You know what? As a kid, like watching it on our shitty, like 500-pound television, I knew, I could tell visually something was weird about it, but I could not tell for sure if it was real or not.
Really?
Yeah, I was very confused. Like, I knew something was going on, not right.
I was one of those people who hated Gollum because it bothered my eyes so bad. Yeah. And I can look at a lot of AI art and just know it's AI. Because for whatever reason, those lack of details bug my eyeballs. So yeah, but he's used to, movies that come out now.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Where
effects
everything
are
just looks real.
But also everything is CGI. So
Yeah.
you're not putting CGI over real stuff because everything's done in a studio, in a sound stage, and like with green screen now.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I was just so bored. I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. At least with the book, I was interested and I could keep counting all of the ways it was Lord of the Rings and it was
Star Wars.
Because there's two female characters at the end of Eragon. There's Arya the elf, who's Arwen, obviously. And then there was what was her name? The king's daughter, of the Varden, and she stays and dresses as a man and fights, and then her father gets killed and she becomes queen. So that was Eowyn.
Right.
Like step for step, Eowyn.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, and then at the end of the movie where they do the setup for the sequel that they apparently plan to make.
Apparently.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, they plan to make a sequel of this piece of shit.
With John Malkovich riding a dragon.
Oh my God. Listeners, we've just been informed that Disney is doing a live action reboot of Eragon. When will they learn?
So I was gonna pull up some of the very funny Rotten Tomatoes. You vamp. You can keep talking while I look this up.
I'll think of something. Oh yeah, there was another part that bothered me. Sometimes the story in the book forgets when Eragon is speaking to Saphira in his head. Like there was one point where Eragon tells Saphira to protect Brahm. He comes back and she's like kind of holding Brahm or like hiding him or something like that. And Eragon asks Saphira, where's Brahm? And then Brahm says, I'm over here.
Right.
Because he doesn't speak to her out loud. He only speaks to her in his head, right?
Yeah, and that gets mixed up quite a bit. So Rotten Tomatoes, it got 16%. Which it deserved.
Yeah.
Some of the really funny reviews. The title of Hollywood's latest fantasy epic is simply the word dragon with one letter changed.
I thought that as a kid.
And unfortunately, that's about the level of creativity you can expect from Eragon. And someone else said, it's a bonanza for the tinted contact lens industry. Because that's how they indicated everyone was like different, was just their lens, like contact lenses.
That's funny.
Kids too young for Lord of the Rings may be distracted by this below average fantasy, but for everyone else, this is derivative and silly.
Was the boy who played Eragon like a named actor? Like
a big name actor?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Okay. I don't know if he played in anything else.
Because, like, the first thing I thought as soon as we started watching the movie was, like, who is this young Heath Ledger impersonator? And then I saw his cousin Roran, and I was like, oh no, he's the Heath Ledger impersonator.
Maybe he was a good actor, but maybe the character was just written as that dull.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in the book and the movie, the character is just dull. Really boring. Just.
I mean, he's as much a Mary Sue as Luke Skywalker, so.
Yeah. And has those same downsides. Yeah.
Like, even though the book, like, has some of the padding for, like, all the training sequences and stuff like that, like, all the characters in the story that are, like, his trainers and stuff like that can't stop singing his praises as to why he's just great at everything. Like, Brahm, after, like, only, like, a couple of months of, like, sword drills, is just, like, there's nothing left I can teach you. You know everything about sword fighting now.
Which reminded me of like the Star Wars thing where he's like training him and then Luke is so good, like so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then even with Yoda, oh, it's so hard and so difficult. And then, oh, you can just do this and you're so fine.
Mm-hmm.
I found it to be interesting. They did in the book show his limits and how he learned them. And a few times he really did make mistakes when he was learning how to use magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
those are the little redeeming qualities. Like they were like those kind of things were abused a little bit, but they were redeemed in the story as well.
Right.
Like he overuses his magic a bunch of times.
Nearly like gets sick or passes out.
And then later in the story, like not very long after that, he also bests 2 lifelong wizards or witch men or something.
The twins.
Yeah. Like they've been doing magic pretty much their entire adult life, and him, after 6 months of occasional spell work, can best them, which he did like have the quote unquote support of Seraphina during.
Don't take a drink every time he says Saphira's name wrong.
What am I thinking of? Who is?
I have no idea who Seraphina
is. Where is that from? Like, I've got to be getting that from something. You go on with your. I'll look that.
So there's this website called Common Sense Media, and it's for really, really scared parents that their kids might see a booty or a kiss. So I was looking through it. They were like flagging it for violence because there's a bloody injuries and faces, brief sadness following a character's murder, wraithy figures who swoop around in darkness, battle scenes, creatures biting each other, bloody wounds, magic spills. Damn it.
Spooky magic.
Yes, which I'm sure there was a lot of homeschool Christian parents who didn't let their kids watch it because of that. Positive messages. Very little. Bad King and Wizard want to stomp out all independent thought. Dragon Rider and his friends want their land to be prosperous and free.
I don't know. I think that's giving Eragon a lot of credit there, because his character doesn't really want anything throughout the book.
No, in fact, a lot of the book is him just wishing he could return to his farm town. And
not be burdened with the yoke of responsibility.
Right. And it's like, how do you think you and your dragon would live in a farm community? Your dragon would end up eating all the sheep just from hunger.
I mean, a boy will do a lot of things for some dragocy. I hate myself.
On this website, it says sex, romance, and nudity. It says there's none, but mutual attraction between Arya and Eragon is established, without much spark, but with some sensual glances. Eragon's relationship with the dragon is, quote unquote, romantic, though it stops short of being sensual.
So it wasn't just me.
It wasn't just you. Some lines are comic, whether intentionally or not, as each declares their mutually interdependent power. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. I found it interesting that in the books, they actually drink, because he's shown as being an adult, or pretty close to it at 16.
Yeah.
Or he's like 15, a year away from manhood, because in this realm, 16 is adulthood. And so like he gets drunk with Brahm and has a headache. In the second book, they're having a feast, and Saphira drinks 4 barrels of like ale and gets drunk and falls over. So like I felt like the character wasn't or the author wasn't completely like averse to, oh yeah, this is what they do in fantasy stories too. They drink ale and get drunk, and you know. So I felt like that was interesting that those And like also his interest in Arya is
lukewarm, forced. That's how I felt about it.
in the movie, it's bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just, oh, here is female, you like her now.
Yeah.
And it was here is hero, you like him now. But nothing happened between them, and they didn't care about each other. And
I can't even remember a moment that they looked at each other, much less glanced sensually at each other.
No. I don't know. I felt like the things that made the book good, the world building, the character building, all of that was completely scrapped for visual effects in the movie.
Yeah. Just like Star Wars.
Just like Star Wars. You know what I was wondering, though? Okay, because Saphira is a character that wasn't really in Lord of the Rings or Star Wars.
Right.
Is she the X-Fighter? Is she R2-D2?
I think she might be the Chewbacca.
But he's...
Because only one character can talk to her.
Right. He belongs to Han Solo, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 1-to-1.
No, I know. I know, but I was just like, that part is different than those two stories, and that part could have been used better.
What if you made an X-Wing out of Chewbacca? That's Saphira. Because, like, he's really excited to fly in her, or fly in the X-Wing. Just like, yeah. That feels a little closer.
Yep.
I'm just imagining, like, a super fuzzy X-Wing.
So, anything you liked about the movie?
God, that's a hard one. I remember there were a couple of things I didn't absolutely despise about the movie. I don't know. I think they did the best with what they had because they were trying to like put what an audiobook form is like. I think it's like 17 hours of content.
It was a really big book. Yeah.
Into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, I think it was like an hour 40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were trying to shove a lot of stuff in a short time period. So I mean, there's only so much you can do with that. Honestly, I would have preferred they didn't, but you know.
I loved seeing John Malkovich in this.
Honestly, he was kind of the highlight.
Did you ever see the movie Inside John Malkovich?
No, you guys have talked about it.
Oh, sorry. It's Being John Malkovich. With John Cusack.
Yeah, you guys have talked about it.
Yes, it is the most bizarre movie ever. But ever since I saw that, I have a love-hate relationship with John Malkovich because maybe he's a good actor, but everything I've seen him in is so absurd that I just can't take him seriously.
I always go back to Con Air with him.
I don't know if I saw that. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah. It's a Nicolas Cage movie from the 90s to 2000s.
Okay, I haven't seen much Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. That one's a decent one.
Okay.
Like better than Snake Eyes, but probably not as good as Face Off.
I don't like Nicolas Cage generally because I saw Raising Arizona as a very young child.
Yeah. That put him in a good light.
No. Kidnapping a baby when I was still a baby myself. And like, honestly, that even colored my view of John Goodman because he was in that too, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a horrific movie to watch as a 4-year-old who didn't understand what was happening. All I knew was a baby got kidnapped by a scary guy and people were fighting in the mud. And this mommy was screaming. So when I was 4, my mom was very depressed and she watched rated R movies all day long for like a year because she couldn't hardly get out of bed or get off the couch. So as a 4-year-old, I watched The Terminator. I watched Alien. Raising Arizona, Death Becomes Her.
Hmm.
A lot of movies like that are not at all appropriate for children. Beetlejuice, that kind of stuff. So then, around the time I was 6 or 7, my mom didn't let us watch Disney movies anymore. Nothing over PG.
That's such a weird pivot.
Very hard pivot. Like, I was surprised she let us watch Star Trek because God isn't real and evolution is in Star Trek.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
At 7, I wasn't allowed to watch Star Wars with my friends who loved Star Wars, and that's all I talked about, and all we played at, hitting each other with sticks.
Yeah.
So, very little. I was very traumatized by these, I saw Predator 2 when I was 4 or 5 and saw naked people strung up, upside down, like butchered, and had nightmares. I saw Tremors and had nightmares about that for years as a little kid. And then we weren't allowed to watch The Little Mermaid because it had a rebellious girl in it.
But yeah, that's a weird one to draw.
So as an adult, trying to rewatch some of these movies, I watched Beetlejuice and I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. It's funny. It has these things that happen. But as a little kid, all I knew was somebody died and now they're dead. And now these horrific monsters are eating people in the dining room, because you only understand these little bits of things.
Right.
So
steer things back to Eragon.
Oh man, it's so boring.
There's really just one other part I want to bring up, and it's just about the narrator in the audiobook again. Because honestly, I think that's the part I appreciate the most about this entire project, has just been the narrator for the audiobook. Because I told you about the kind of Louis Armstrong-ish monster voice that he goes with for Saphira. There's a part in the story, and this is how you know, he paid attention to what was going on and how his performance was being delivered, because he chooses that voice for Saphira, and then later, Eragon gets confused in his head because he hears another voice in his head and assumes it's Saphira, but it's actually Solombim.
Oh yeah.
So he has to go with a similar sounding voice,
right,
but still one that kind of suits the character. So he ends up with this tortured sounding kind of feminine Louis Armstrong. And he has to make the voice sound kind of coy, like the character is whenever they speak.
Right. That is hilarious. So similarly, I couldn't get the audiobook on the library. I couldn't get the book on the library app within this week. It was on hold. So I went to YouTube, and there's a YouTube channel called Rachel Reads, and it had Eragon. And it's a lot like someone just sitting reading to you. There's mistakes and misspeaking, but she's just, sounds like just an American girl reading a book out loud.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And then she gets to the things where they're pretending to be someone else, like Brom and Eragon pretend to be Evan and Neil going into that city.
Yeah.
And she gives them very thick hick accents. My brother and me's coming down here to get some fish. And so watching the movie, I was like, oh, they'll have English accents, but not John Malkovich.
Well, it's funny because the narrator in the Audible audiobook also kind of does that. He gives them a hick accent, but it's a Welsh accent, which I guess is kind of
for the British.
The European South. It's the Welsh.
It was just really funny because my problem with this girl, she didn't know how to say wary, W-A-R-Y, wary of that. She called it worry the whole time, and he uses that word a lot.
It's kind of like whenever somebody reading a book says winding when it's supposed to be winding. That drives me up a fucking wall.
Or Serafina instead of Saphira.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll eat that crow.
I had a good time listening to it. And I was kind of reminded of, this I enjoyed this as, 14, 15-year-old kid, however old I was when I read this.
Yeah, I regret not reading this as a kid because I would have probably had like a deep abiding love for this.
Mm-hmm.
But well.
And that's why I'm trying to give a lot of leeway to the author and to the book, because it's like, for what it is, for young adult fiction, a lot of the point of books at that time is to give kids a love of reading and give them a character they enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it succeeds there. Like, honestly, I would go as far as like C+ to a low B rating for the book.
Yeah, with notes for plagiarism.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone is quote unquote inspired sometimes.
True. I just felt like key plot points were way too close to other stories.
Yeah, it's definitely right on it. It's definitely not plagiarism.
Like, I feel like he should have had someone in editing should have looked at this and said, hey, you're kind of ripping really, really directly off of. But, for a kid's first novel, it was done pretty well.
Certainly better than anything I wrote at that age.
Yeah. And I mean, I had fantasies of being a dragon rider even before I read this, because, who wouldn't want to have a fantastical magic companion or a horse that can fly? Movie, I would give...
I give it a fuck you F. Because it was a piece of shit.
My son was shaking with excitement for 2 minutes during the final fight scene. Yeah. So I give it a D+.
Yeah.
It was able to keep his interest for about 15 minutes of the end.
Well, I guess if we're going by that, I guess I can also give it like a low D, because while Lily and I were watching it, she was like laughing hysterically at me as I was watching it. Like my face just...
Jay had never seen it or read it, so this was his first time. He thought it was boring, but he was really amused by watching me just like, wait, what? And he'd look at me. So that wasn't in the book? No. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish this was like a regular episode so we could have ads, because I could think of some good ad pivots we could do for this one.
You know what? You should just take us out with some fun, witty.
Okay. You know what won't fuck your dragon?
Oh my god.
You know what won't contrive you to become Dragon Jesus within 3 days? Fucking Squarespace.
You know who won't rip off Star Wars and Lord of the Rings super blatantly? Not this. Well, I want to say thank you, patrons, for being here and for enjoying Eragon with us.
Yeah, we love you, and yeah, that's it.
We really appreciate all of your financial support, and we appreciate you interacting with us, letting us know what movies you want to hear in the future. Oh yeah, what kind of movies were we planning on in the future? I was thinking Battlefield Earth.
Yeah, God, I've got a couple. Started writing a couple of down.
Because I know that's an L. Ron Hubbard book, and then a movie that has John Travolta, noted Scientologist, in it. Twilight, that'll be a good one. Or one of the Twilight movie/books.
Another one I thought, there's one called Shadow Builder by Bram Stoker.
Oh. Interesting.
And it's not popular at all, so I just imagine it's bad.
Oh, I think I read about that one in a worst books of all time list.
Mm-hmm.
Did it come after his
I
other
assume it
book?
came after Dracula, or else it wouldn't have like any.
I think that was
at
part
all.
of the comparison was like these authors had a good first book or a good earlier book, and then the later book was bad.
Yeah.
And then, I know I had a couple other ideas that we had written down. And then we're thinking about, like, for Christmas, doing something fun and not bad, like a Christmas Carol or, something holiday oriented.
Yeah.
There's so many bad books and so many bad movies. There's just too much to choose from.
One that I did think of that's a movie book combo, Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, that's based on a book?
Yeah, I had no idea either.
Huh. Yeah, that would be good.
And it's real weird because it interacts a lot with eugenics and H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh.
So there's a lot of fun stuff to go in with that one. I just started reading it, and it's something.
Interesting.
Yep. And if anyone does start subscribing to our Patreon, we really appreciate it. And like a lot of the earlier episodes, we're doing our best.
Our sound quality does improve.
Relatively quickly, I think, because we get it like within
we had to
6 or 7 episodes.
No More Heroes into 4 parts. That pushes it back calendar time further. But yeah, we tried to buy better mics as soon as we could.
Yeah.
Hope you had lots of laughs. Hope you have a great month, and we'll see you next time on Biblio Rex.
Biblio Rex.
Bye, guys.